Bienvenue, ladies and gentlemen, to game number 6 of WhiteRa versus Millennium Stephano. Of course, that little introduction was in honor of our French player, Stephano. And so this is actually my second time casting this game, because I made a mistake I've never made before in my some 25 uploads, when I was importing the raw fraps recording footage into Windows Live Movie Maker. I guess I did not select all the clips because the resulting video came out at only about 15 minutes, but I didn't realize this, so I deleted all the raw capture videos like I always do, and then I deleted the post Movie Maker video like I always do, because I run it through any video converter after that, and lost half the footage, couldn't get it back. Very frustrating, but nonetheless, I thoroughly enjoyed casting this game the first time, so I'm sure it'll be fine this time as well. I do know the result, but that's not that bad. I am one for going in blind to replays. Anyway, we do have our red Protoss player WhiteRa at the bottom left of, I believe this is Shakura's Plateau, up against Mil Stephano. Actually, I'm shaky. I do not remember the map name. As I've said multiple times in this series, still got to get acquainted with my maps. I don't know if it is Shakura's Plateau or not, in all honesty. And so if you could please refresh me on that, it would be much appreciated. WhiteRa has in this series, before I ruin this for you, if you want to check out the other games, feel free to do so, is down 4-1. Sorry, not 5-1. Not... That would be a GG, and this game would not exist if he was down 5-1, because it is a best-of-9 series. And in the past games, I have said best-of-7. Again, just one of those little uneducated mistakes I made. I was tired when first down 1 in the series, so I just said, okay, I figured it was a best-of-7. Usually, that is the amount that series are. So, in the past game, by the way, I apologize if the video cut off, because I did make a couple iterations involving best of 7, best of 9 that ruined the series. So I deleted the last minute of the commentary because I don't believe in ruining series for viewers. So yeah, that's why there wasn't really a goodbye or anything of the sort. We do have the quick pool here from Stephano, as he has done in almost every game. So he gets pretty much the pool, hatch, layer tech, pool, hatch, layer tech, roach horn. Or Roach Warren Layer Tech. The timings have varied. And then, so now he is trying to stall this natural here, so that will probably force Stephano to go to the third location. And WhiteRa is going for the Forge Fast Expand. He's done this in almost every game. In the past game, I believe he went for the Gateway Expand. No, like a 3-gate expand. No actual Forge. So he is going to try to hold this one off. In games 2 and 3, he did lose the games entirely because he could not fend off Roach Wing pressure trying to get the fast third. So let us see how it pans out for him in this game. And so he has been able to stall the natural somewhat, but again, now Stephano's just going to move over here and grab the third. Some overlord positioning here from Stephano, still moving. He has one trying to move in, and usually the Zerg player gets it behind the middle line after first seeing the opposing build. And so not the brightest idea there from WhiteRa, though he does lose the pylon and thus is briefly supply blocked, which is so crucial early game that now he will not have the means to produce workers for just those brief few seconds it takes pylons to finish. So he did have one that finished just now, but still, every second counts, especially in professional replays when it is this early in the game. It really does make a difference if you cannot produce workers even for some 5 seconds. So now, just the 2 gates, well, there was the gate there, not sure if it was cancelled or lost. Now the overlord positioning here from Stephano will be ever crucial. He will have to try to avoid this photon cannon. And so just the 1 gate so far with the Forge and Cybernetics Core on the way. The natural hatchery is being recuperated here from Stephano, and he has his spawning pool. So usually what he tends to go for is speedlings initially, with speed upgraded roaches to support, and all of his units are always so well upgraded. Here, I'm just gonna try shifting around with the keyboard a little bit. I want to get acquainted with that. I've seen it in some HD videos, some of HD's videos, and I really like the way it pans instead of just using the mouse as such. Please tell me if you have a preference. And then, so there is the pylon here from WhiteRa. I don't know if that will have some sort of relevance, if he wants to warp units to the low ground, or if he's going to try to go for any sort of a different tech build. As in the last game, he went for the double proxy Stargate, and it did not work out for him. And there's the double Stargate, not necessarily a proxy, but well placed. When it's in the corner of the base as such, it becomes very difficult for an opposing player to scout that. They would look everywhere in the base except this little corner here. A nice positioning there. You can tell it's carefully thought out. And now air weapons level 1 from our Protoss player, which was ultimately, I would argue, his downfall in the last game. Stephano had 3-3 air carapace and air weapons, and that completely changes the shift of the game. as WhiteRa just had 1-0 or I believe it was 2-0 by the end of the game, and it was just so frustrating, and as upgrades are very preventable. And I have to say, I am an amateur player myself. No, I'm no pro, very far from it. In around Silver League, I would estimate my ability to be around there. But the one thing I am impeccable with is my upgrade timings. I don't know why. I just, it's been this, I guess once, in games I make a conscious effort, just upgrades, hotkey that forge, and consistently upgrade as Stephano does. So he has the metabolic boost on the way, and the Roach Warren followed by the Lair, so he's going to go Roach Warren first. Possibly some pressure. Some pressure will possibly emanate from that. And we do have the Fleet Beacon from WhiteRa, so if he tries to go for the crazy Archon Toilet with which he won in Game 1, that would be hilarious. Or perhaps just some fast carriers, or a Anion Pulse Crystal's Phoenix Harass on Overlords. And so we did see that in the last game. WhiteRa did lose as a result of the upgrades, and there was just too many mutas for his Phoenixes to handle, but he did have Anion Pulse Crystals and was picking off so very many mutas late game. He did end up losing that though. So there are now Glial Reconstitution and 2 carriers, so it looks like Stephano is going to opt for carriers and the Gravitic Catapult, I believe. Yeah, Graviton Catapult. Gravitic is always the word that comes to mind. I don't know, it just seems to fit more for me. So it is Graviton Catapult that launches interceptors more quickly. And so that is always just one of those small upgrades you invest in if you're going for a carrier build. And the very late Warp Gate tech actually in this game at the 9-minute mark. So I do not imagine Warp Gate will play too big a role here in WhiteRa's playstyle. He only has 1 gateway, so he is actually extremely vulnerable to this ground pressure. If these carriers do not finish in time, they will, and they will most probably harass, and there is no anti-air here for Stephano. But if he sees this in time, he will probably just be able to invest in some heavy corruptors or mutas, as we saw in the last game, and that just counters especially carriers so well. They move slowly, they're powerful, but if they're anticipated, or if they're at least or known, then they've rendered completely useless. If you know your opponent's going for carriers and you get corruptors, especially corruptors, Phoenix is less so. Vikings, I would say, are in the middle of the two. It just changes the game entirely. So this has been seen now by Stephano, and he has so many Spore Crawlers out here. He's going to have to focus these down on the carriers, not the interceptors. So just dealing some minor damage. All the queens moved here, but one of them is going to fall, and now there's just a ton of Spore Crawlers though, and that will force the carriers back somewhat. So this queen may be picked off as well, so yes, it will. Some nice queen kills there for our Protoss player, but just an excess of Spore Crawlers. So finally, WhiteRa has decided to invest in 3 gateways, so he will be able to muster up a ground army. Here is the Void Ray coming under siege from the Spore Crawler. It does so much damage, I did not even realize. It loses some health though, so it could have been a little bit better micro there from our WhiteRa, because he had to move it back just to avoid any. That's the problem with Protoss. Once your shields are depleted, you have to be sure that you micro the unit back to avoid sustaining as little health damage as possible. It's because it is irreversible. If you're a Zerg player, less so, of course, and Terran players can be repaired or healed. Protoss kind of have it worse off in that regard. So here is the Spire on the way from Stephano. So as I said, probably going to invest in the heavy corruptor build to pick off these Void Rays and carriers, or maybe even mutas to deal with whatever ground forces WhiteRa may be able to muster up. So, oh, actually there was some minor pressure here. Not even minor pressure. I apologize for my missing that. I suppose Stephano was trying to go for the ground pressure there, but it does not look like he did too much. No, he's 3 workers killed, so I doubt it was anything major. Again, though, my apologies for missing that. I forget the user. I believe it was RatCLC or something of the sort commented on my first video and just told me to watch the minimap. I apologize to you for neglecting to do so now. I was just too focused on the carrier play. So here are some Zealots running in. No upgrades, of course. Going to pick off some of the Spore Crawlers to soften up the air defenses. Now, WhiteRa forced to micro back his units. Is he going to lose this Void Ray? Yes, so could have been better unit control there. And 5 roaches are on the way for Stephano, but a mothership for WhiteRa, so I don't think he's going to go for the Archon Toilet, but perhaps that is possible, but I'm not sure. The Archon 12 could be feasible, but there's just 13 Corruptors on the way there from Stephano, and he has so many Spore Crawlers, and he has his Roaches with Guile Reconstitution, and now he has air upgrades level 1, so still no upgrades for WhiteRa outside of the 1-0 upgrades for his air units. And now they are going to hit hard here at the 3rd location, but the Spore Crawler is just going nuts over this, and I'm sure that the Corruptors should be here any second now. They are on their way. Not sure if this will be enough Corruptors. It should be, though. These Void Rays are fully charged, forced to retreat, and one of them will be picked off. Fully charged Void Rays doing some damage, but now the Corruptors are reinforced. They have 1-1 on the way, so they will soon be ahead of their opponent's air fleet in terms of upgrades. Now moving on to the carriers, one of them is going to fall, and it does. A second carrier probably going to fall victim to these ever deadly Corruptors. One of them just swinging around, dancing around, trying to pick off an interceptor, and this second carrier is going to fall, and that is doom for the 3rd. So carriers are so very expensive on the Protoss economy, especially early game like this. So they are 350, 250. I thought they were 250, 250. I never usually tech up to carriers as a Protoss player, so that is insane how much that costs them. If we lost 3 carriers, that is 350 plus 250, 600 minerals, and then times, that's 1800 resources, sorry, all in that one little engagement, plus the Void Rays, so very expensive. Let us see our units lost tab, so 6,612 resources lost for our Protoss player. The mothership has finished now, so it may be eagerly awaiting a Vortex, but there are no Archons, so I don't think that would be feasible just yet. No Twilight Council on the field, so a tech up to Archons may not entirely be feasible just yet, but this mothership is going to get picked off. Nice focusing from the Corruptors. A lot of them are going to fall here, but it was well worth it. The mothership takes ever long to produce. Now we have 38 Zerglings with speed on the way, and 7 more Corruptors. This Air Carapace level 1 is going to finish really soon. 2 more gateways from, actually 4 more gateways from our Protoss player, but 52 speed upgraded wings now, so that will deal so well with these ground forces. The Corruptors, and some nice fungal, no, not some nice fungal, sorry, the Corruptors using their Contaminate ability, Corruption, sorry, Contaminate, wrong upgrade name, so Contaminate, Corruption, to have these, I believe it renders opposing forces more vulnerable to damage. Yes, exactly. Increases the damage taken. Okay, I'm a little rusty on that. You almost never see people using Corruption, so that is why. Well used there, though, by Stephano to change the tide of the battle. And oh, it's just a cooldown based ability. That is weird. I did not remember Corruptors having energy, so I was just like, wait a minute, how does this work? It's just cooldown. Pretty awesome if you ask me. And now a huge mass of crawlers here on the way from Stephano. Look at this placement as well. And of course, crawlers are movable as opposed to Brood Wars, Spore Colonies, and, well, yeah, Spore Colonies and Spine Colonies. No, Sunken Colonies, my apologies. So, look at this just massive line of crawlers. That will deal with just about anything. There is a ground force here moving in to deny the 5th location. Now, that is the 6th location here. And not sure if they'll be able to pick off the hatchery. Why is WhiteRa focusing on opposing units? He's not going to be able to pick off the hatchery now. So not exactly the best engage there from WhiteRa. And we have level 2 air weapons and carapace from our Zerg. So he's just going to get so much farther ahead. Infestation Pit as well, and there was a Twilight Council that just now finished. So there will probably be that tech up to Archons for WhiteRa. But this mothership, 160 StarCraft seconds. How agonizing is that? And against this massive crawler line, just because Stephano can afford it. Look at his gas. When do you see 2,300 gas in a pro game and on a player who's actively producing this much? That it's absolutely incredible, and we do have ground carapace level 1 and charged for both players. So he's able to out-upgrade, out-macro, and just adapt to the game. He saw the heavy air build, so he went for Corruptors, but didn't overreact and invest entirely in Corruptors. So he can still pick off this air force, but has enough of an upgraded ground force to deal with these zealots, these charge lots, and stalkers. And he will have infestors on the way with pathogen glands really soon, and hive tech. So it's looking so good for Stephano at this point, just because of his economical ability and his general skill set. He has 6 bases, almost all of them saturated by now, and you seldom see that at the 20-minute mark of a game. 6 fully saturated bases, one of them completely depleted by now, but look at the amount of larvae he has as well. Just at his main, he has about 9 larvae, and is it has the means to produce off all of them. So there is the Templar Archives, handful of photon cannons, carrier, and that mothership finally finishing along with charge. So there is going to be an attempt at the Archon turret, which is pretty much WhiteRa's only hope in terms of controlling the skies. 12 infestors on the way with Neuroparasite from Stephano, so he's so very good at infestor control. And here is the Corruptor Force, probably going to see if there's a mothership to pick off. Does not have enough energy for the expensive Vortex, and it is going to die. Another mothership lost. The Corruptor's going to move out, most of them falling, but it's not a big deal there for Stephano. He can just regenerate all of them, no problem. Okay, I lost a handful of Corruptors for your expensive mothership and time-costing mothership, as time is money, truly, especially in StarCraft. Just no big deal. He can regenerate all of them. He has 11 on the way, and he now has 3/3 and 2 melee weapons. So again, WhiteRa does have a strong economy himself, and has not upgraded. He has 1-0, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. 1-0 on his ground forces and 1-0 on his air forces. There's no excuse. He's played a strong game thus far. I have to say, he's a professional. Completely outdoes my ability in every way imaginable. But it's just this small thing with upgrades. He is getting ground weapons level 2, but we're 22 minutes into the game. He could very well be at 3-3 at this point. 3-3-3 even with the shields taken into account. Now there's just a mass of charge lots here. Just going to deal with that roach harass. Not sure if that actually was too economical. No, very few workers killed there. So not the brightest idea, but I guess Stephano had some population to free up. So he has so many more spine and spore crawlers. These do not take up population, and when you have the economic means to place them, they're so well worth it. And let's see if he can get some good cancels here. There are some very nice fungals on the charge lots, though. And if enough spine crawlers can finish, they will probably be able to hold this off. Infested Terrans landing as well with this huge fleet of Corruptors just perusing the skies. And so there are going to be a bunch of cancels on those spine crawlers. So the crawler defense is pushed back a little bit. And a plethora of upgrades here. That's going to be Ground Carapace level 2 and Adrenal Glands, the crack upgrade for Stephano, with Psionic Storm coming for WhiteRa. His level 2 ground upgrades are going to finish. The Infested Terrans picking off the last Zealot. And look at that! After that whole cancel situation, and after Stephano was somewhat pushed back, he can just regenerate around 9 spine crawlers. And so it's truly exceptional. He hasn't really bottled up his opponent and hasn't even had to keep him off balance economically, but it's WhiteRa that's had to keep the Zerg player off balance. You cannot let a Zerg get to 6 saturated bases and hope to win. No matter what he does at this point, he's out-upgraded and completely outproduced. There's now I've seen Stephano research Burrow in so many of these games, and he's used it in very few. Pneumatized Carapace for Overlords. I'm not sure if that will play a part in his, if he's going to try to drop or something of the sort. But there is now this mothership with 91 energy. Is it going to be seriously picked off for a third time? This better not happen for Stephano. He nails WhiteRa's mothership. Not once, not twice, but 3 times, denying the Vortex, and the very few Corruptors lost. They're all going to escape here back to the homeland. One of them will fall, so just so close. He was up just that little meter cliff and could not quite make it. So, oh, how devastating for WhiteRa. He has Carapace level 3 and melee weapons level 3, so he's just going to have these 3/3 cracklings, and he has his 3/3 Corruptors. So finally, weapons level 3 for WhiteRa's ground units and weapons level 2 for his air units. Some fantastic bungles there landing and regenerated there by Stephano's Infestors, which are always so well controlled. They're going to pick off all of the carriers. The mothership once more regenerated. Some nice Psionic Storms, though. Not quite nice on that last one, but they did inflict some hurt on the opposing force. A few Archons here just trying to force the opponent, trying to force Stephano into a retreat, but it's not really a retreat, it's just a gathering so that he can remax out his force and await the finishing of this Greater Spire, which is right here. It just kind of hunkers down and then rises great once more. So we finally do have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th base here from WhiteRa, and look at that, 27 minutes into the game. It's been around probably 10 minutes, I would imagine, since Stephano got his 6th. So he doesn't really care at this point. He still has all of those saturated bases. Let us see actually our income time. He has 93 harvesters to WhiteRa's 67, which is expected. I mean, it's absolutely feasible for the Zerg to be that far ahead at this point in the game. But he has now, Stephano's got 9 Broodlords. He has on the way. He has Infestors, Corruptors, and all of his upgrades almost finished. So the Carapace level 3 is soon going to be done, and all of these crawlers, it's not looking good at this point for our Protoss player. As much as I am a big fan of WhiteRa's, I just don't see how he's going to be able to pull this one off. Even now, this late in the game, missile attacks level 1 for Stephano, and so many spine crawlers moving into play here. So the Charge Bots are going to try to deny this one Infestor feedback, but that does very little. The Corruptors now getting Sonic Stormed, and that's a ton of damage to them. They were a little clumped up there, and wow, an awful lot of damage to the, not an awful lot, about half health damage to the Corruptors, but the problem is WhiteRa does not have enough to actually deal with them, so even if they are at half health, there is another mothership here at 91 energy. I swear, if Stephano can pick it off, that will be absolutely mind-numbing. 96 energy if this is picked off before it can land the Vortex. Oh god, I don't even know. So I don't know if you heard a little bit of a clacking noise there. That was my deodorant dropping. Nonetheless, let's see if it can land the Vortex. It has the energy means to do so, but the Corruptors are going to focus down, and they are probably going to pick this up 4 times. A mothership falls. It had enough energy. WhiteRa just couldn't quite manage to land the Vortex on the impressing Zerg air fleet, which has now reached 8 Broodlords, inflicting so much damage on their opponents. All these infested Terrans popping out and forcing WhiteRa back. So 25 Corruptors on the way right away, just seconds after they went down, all back. And all WhiteRa has is 3 carriers just about to finish, and a handful of High Templar. So these infested Terrans just haunting this cliff here, not allowing the probe safe passage. So we have the 7th and 8th bases from Stephano. He's not even going to need them at this point. It should be an imminent GG with all of these Corruptors on their way. 3-3 Corruptors and Broodlords, and then the Infestors at 3 Carapace, and these Cracklings at 3-3. It's not looking too good for WhiteRa at all. He has this carrier fleet, but they're only, I believe, 2-0. Yeah, exactly. They're 2-0, and his ground forces are 3-0, so just completely avoidable. He could have produced upgrades, but now all of these carriers are going to fall. Some relatively nice storms there from the High Templar, but there are too many Corruptors and too much of an economy for Stephano. He could regenerate his force in just a matter of seconds if he wanted to. 5 more Broodlords morphing from the Corruptors, and there's the GG. Well played, congrats. Just look at this crawler line. Nothing would get by this, truly. So Stephano's left the game. There's at least a very courteous bowing out for WhiteRa. Well played, GG, congrats. Extremely well spoken of him to have lost this series 5-1 in a best of 9 and still be perfectly cordial. So absolutely my respect goes out to WhiteRa for that. But a little bit more of my respect goes out to Stephano for an extremely well-played series. He took this one decisively, game after game, adapting to his opponent's strategy, upgrading relentlessly, and just coming out on top with reason. He absolutely deserved the $6,000 prize pool, which I believe was given to the winner of this show match. So the IPL 3 champion does defeat the IPL 2 champion here in our best of 9. I hope you enjoyed my first professional series. Although it did have its mistakes, it was a pleasure to cast for you. I will catch you guys next time. Hopefully not have to redo this one again. See you soon.